Hello everyone, welcome to Everything Arsenal. Let's get into the latest news updates. A lot of transfer news to get into today, including the latest on our search for a striker, our search for a winger, and a midfielder as well. So obviously, April going into May, you start hearing about potential targets and players who are in advanced talks with the club and all that, and how much budget we potentially have for the transfer window. And this is the latest news in terms of that. According to The Guardian, Arsenal are expected to have a significant transfer budget this summer and could spend as much as 200 million plus. So that's a lot of money. Last transfer window, if you remember well, we were given around the same money. Obviously, we used 100 of it on Declan Rice. He used 65 of it on Havertz. He used around 42 million of it on Dre and Timber, and then obviously got Raya on loan. The transfer window. So we made three significant signings in terms of money, above 40 million, above 60 million, and above 100 million. And now we have a similar budget. So how many players are we going to get with that 200 million? Should we be looking for like two top players, just two players with that 200 million? Should we be looking for three players, four players? How many players should we be looking for? So I'm not quite aware if we sell players, it's also going to be added to the budget, because there's a lot of players that we don't expect to be at Arsenal next season, and most of them will be sold. Some of them are currently on loan, so we might add onto our budget as well and end up getting around four players. I'd say in this transfer window, I'd expect us to get a similar number of players we got last summer in terms of numbers. So I'd say four, potentially a striker, a winger, midfielder, and maybe a goalkeeper or something, and maybe even a defender, who knows. But at Senedu are working on that. I'm sure they want a striker. We've heard about that a lot. So I'm sure they want a winger, and they'll be linked to a midfield. And then Ramsdale, we're still not 100% sure if he's going to leave, because we haven't really heard anything about a goalkeeper apart from De Gea. And I think I don't even remember, is this Rayo Vallecano or something, Celta Vigo goalkeeper we were linked to as well a couple of months ago. But apart from that, we haven't really had a lot. But 200 million would really, really help us, because the kind of market that we have right now, players, strikers especially, whenever you're linked to a striker, you hear 70 million, 80 million, 90 million and above. Even if a striker scores 5 goals in the season, you hear all of a sudden there's 70 million. Like, the market has gone crazy. And to get a top striker, at least half of that on a top striker. Like, that is what has to happen. We can't go and buy a 20 million striker or 25 million striker. We'll have to get a quality striker that we are looking for, and I'm sure Arteta and Edu are looking at that, and it's going to be interesting to see who they go for. But they've been linked to a few players, and that is what we are going to be talking about next. Let's start with the winger situation. So we heard about Neto, but he's injury prone. We've also heard about Nico Williams the last few weeks as well. And now Michael Olise. Now, according to reports, Crystal Palace's Michael Olise is understood to be a potential target after impressing Arsenal's scouting department. Olise's contract includes a release clause that comes into effect in the summer and is understood to be in the region of 65 million. This is according to Ed Aarons of The Guardian. And Olise as well, I mean, he's been injured a few times this season, hoping it doesn't affect him in terms of the future and stuff. But 65 million for Michael Olise, I think that's a good price for players who've played in the Premier League for a few years and they've had an impact on their team and very, very important to their team. I think 65 million is a very good price. Listen, we do end up getting players like Odegaard for 35 million. You do end up getting players like Trossard for less than 30 million. Players like Gabriel for around that money as well, and they come and become like staples in your team, sorry, they become staples in your team, and you always use them every single game, and they have an effect on your team. If they miss, you definitely feel like they're missing the game. But Olise, for that price, 65 million, I think is definitely worth it. Right now, you cannot go for players like Olise and players like Nico Williams and expect them to come to your team for like 20, 30 million. Back in the day, yes, you'd get players like Ashavin and players like that for around that money. But right now, for a player who's very important at Crystal Palace, and a player you're signing from a fellow English team, from a fellow London team, you're going to have to pay a lot of money for him. So Olise for 65 million, I think that is a good price. And we definitely need a backup for Saka. Obviously, no one wants Saka to be sold. I've not had that opinion from anyone. But sometimes you look at the game and he's tired. Sometimes you look at the game and he's injured. Sometimes you look at the game and he's not playing well, and you look at the bench, there's literally no one to bring on for him. And we're really struggling right now. Reece Nelson, you can't really trust to bring him on in a Champions League game against Bayern Munich. You can't really bring on Smith Rowe to play on the right side. You can't really bring on Fabio Vieira to play on the right side in a game like that. But if you have someone like a Michael Olise, they can definitely come on and have an impact. And it's not only a backup, they can actually come and provide competition for Bukayo Saka, and that is what you need all across the pitch. A lot of competition, a lot of competition. Midfield right now, you have Partey and Jorginho. Any of them can play. On the left side, you have Martinelli and Trossard. You need that everywhere across the pitch, and Olise would be a very good signing. Now, he's not the only one, but let's go. Let's read this fast. Arsenal are eyeing a 165 million double move for Newcastle's Alexander Isak, and Crystal Palace says Michael Olise in the summer. This is according to The Guardian. So 65 million for Olise, we've already talked about that. So 100 million for Alexander Isak. Now, these are two players coming from the Premier League. We don't usually sign too many players coming from the Premier League, apart from recently. Recently, we've been able to get Havertz from Chelsea. We've been able to get Rice from West Ham. Like, if you look at the previous years, we always get our players from outside, like Gabriel from Lille. We get Saliba from France as well. We get Odegaard from Spain as well. Like, all of our players usually come from outside England. But recently, the likes of Havertz and the likes of Rice have all come from the Premier League. And it's looking like we're also looking at the Premier League right now. Players who won't really need too much time to settle in, and players who are already used to the Premier League, and players already done very well in the Premier League. And Alexander Isak and Michael Olise are two of those players. Now, I love both of them. I know both of them are really good players. I think 65 million for Olise, I think it's worth it. If you had to ask me how much I'd really want to pay, I'd say around 50 million. For Isak, I'd say around maybe the same that they paid for him, around 70. Still feel like 100 million is a lot, but you obviously need to go through negotiations and all that. But both of them are really good. If you watch Isak's goals against Tottenham, against Liverpool this season, against Liverpool, the goal that Isak scored at Anfield, if you go back and watch the game between Liverpool and Newcastle, I think it was like 4-2 or something. Isak gets a ball, and it's not like a clear-cut chance. He makes that chance for himself. It goes to the left side and finds a way to shoot the ball, and goes past some really good defenders and finds a way to score. Like, that is how good he is. You have to find a way to feed him, and if you do, well, it's inside the box, outside the box, he'll find a way to score. He scored a similar goal against Chelsea, where he basically did 80% of the work and got the goal. Such goals that don't even really need an assist. Like, you don't even really need to say this one scored the goal and this one got an assist. You can easily say Isak got the goal and he also got the assist, because he basically set up himself. But he's a really good player, and he's one striker I'd really love to see at Arsenal. That is if Newcastle want to give him to us. Now, he's not the only one. Let me know first, would you pay 100 million for Alexander Isak? Would you pay 65 million for, say, if both of them were to go for like 130 million, 140 million total, I'd be very happy to get both of them. Now, we'll come back to the striker situation, but Isak is not the only Newcastle player we are linked to. Surprisingly, we are also linked to Bruno Guimaraes. Yeah, the guy who always gets into fights with Arsenal players. Arsenal and other clubs really like Bruno Guimaraes. He can play in the 8 and the 6 positions. Newcastle will hope to keep hold of him. There's a release clause though. So back to Isak before we come back to Bruno Guimaraes. Isak looks to me like a player who wouldn't mind leaving his team, Newcastle. He looks like that player. Like, if an offer comes from a bigger team, he'd be willing to leave. Now, Bruno Guimaraes is a little bit different. I feel like I've seen him like really loving Newcastle, and you hear him talking about Newcastle. He really went into, he moved from Lyon to there. We wanted him before he moved to, both players actually, Isak and Bruno Guimaraes were linked to both of them before they moved to Newcastle. Whenever you hear Bruno Guimaraes talking and all that, he really does feel like a player who wants to stay at Newcastle for a long time. He's a kind of player who would be like, nah, I don't want to move out. I want to stay at Newcastle. He has that, I have that feeling whenever I watch him. He's a crazy dude, just like Bruno Fernandes. If he's a player who's not going to, he's not playing for your team, you probably hate him. And we've seen him getting into fights with a lot of Arsenal players, Declan Rice, Jorginho, and all that. In terms of, if you want to go to war and you have Declan Rice and you have those guys in midfield and you have Bruno Guimaraes on top of that, that would be, you'd definitely feel very safe. But how much would it be worth? That is what we are waiting to hear. But let me know, would you be interested in buying someone like Bruno Guimaraes? As they said, as David Ornstein said, he can play in the number 8 and the number 6 positions. He just like Declan Rice, both of them. Whenever you need him to attack, he can go forward and score. Whenever you just need him in midfield to make those tackles and interceptions and win the ball back for you several times, he can do that for you. And then another player who's also played in the Premier League, just like Isak. So could we be going for 2 players from Newcastle and hijacking Newcastle? Not hijacking, but what's the word? The word has disappeared, but basically taking two players from Newcastle, going there and basically just taking their players off them. And I think if you take those two players off Newcastle right now with all the injuries, they finish like 15th or 16th because the goals come from ISAK and the Bruno Guimaraes provides the steal in midfield and is usually always available. Says Newcastle have had a lot of injuries this season. Wilson has been out, Gordon has been out, Tonali has been suspended, Lascelles has been out, Botsman has been out, Almiron has been out, but the one player that you usually look and is always there, maybe apart from when he's suspended for 2 games, is Bruno Guimaraes. He is always there. So let me know, would you guys be willing to get Alexander Guimaraes from there? And if you had to be asked one of them, to choose one of them, who would you pick? Alexander Isak, or would you go for the crazy dude? I call him the crazy dude, Bruno Guimaraes. It looks like every single Bruno in the Premier League is a crazy dude. Both of them, him and also on top of that, obviously Bruno Fernandes. Both of them, all of them crazy. All of them players you'd hate if they don't play for your team. Now, back to let's get on with the midfield situation. Guimaraes is not the only one. You've also been linked to Zubimendi for a long time. And according to John Cross of the Mirror, Arsenal now view a new striker and winger as priorities in this summer's transfer window. Arsenal also want Martin Zubimendi as part of their rebuild and a new partner for Declan Rice, but the forward line will be seen as their priority. So what we do know is if we sign a striker, it's going to be one. We would sign like Isak and Vlahovic and Gyökeres, all three of them at the same time. Is going to be one. And in midfield, we know that it's either Bruno Guimaraes or Zubimendi or another person, whoever is going to be linked to Arsenal. But Zubimendi will be linked to him for a long time. Looks like Atsa really likes him. And that makes me feel like between Jorginho and Partey, at least one of them is going to go. I don't think you're going to have, let's say, Zubimendi, Rice, Partey, and Jorginho all in the team at the same time. I feel like at least one of them is going to leave. Who, we don't know. But Zubimendi is a player who's been admired. For him, he plays as a number 6 mostly. That's where he plays for Sociedad, and that's why his best performances come for Sociedad in the number 6 position. Let's also get through this. According to Sami Mokbel, Real Sociedad midfielder Martin Zubimendi has major backing with Arsenal's recruitment team. So they really do like him. And I think in terms of which one would be easier to sign between Zubimendi and Bruno Guimaraes, I think it definitely would be Zubimendi because Newcastle, fellow Premier League team. You can even say rival with everything that has gone down. But with Zubimendi coming from Real Sociedad, I don't think they're qualifying for the Champions League next season. So it would be easier to get. Newcastle also not qualify for the Champions League, but there's obviously that England factor that Newcastle versus Arsenal and him loving Newcastle so much, he definitely want to stay there. So there is that as well. So midfield situation, very interesting. Striker situation also very interesting. Winger situation, very interesting. When I talked about Isak, there's actually let me actually read it for you. I don't have it on screen, but Vlahovic has also been linked to Arsenal. Now, according to reports on that, this is what I think it was Ed Aarons as well from The Guardian who had this to say. It is understood that Alexander Isak is one of Arsenal's primary targets. It could cost up to 100 million. Dusan Vlahovic could also be another alternative. So same from Ed Aarons of The Guardian says that we also linked to Vlahovic, another player we've been linked to for like 3 years now. I think the first time we linked to him was 2021 or something, but we've never really gotten him. But he's a player that we've been interested in. And listen, if I was to get any of these strikers, Vlahovic, Isak, I'd take any of them because they've perfected that striker position and they just want to score a bunch of goals. That is what they want. The strikers that we have, I'm one person who still wants Jesus to stay at Arsenal. But obviously it's not a 30-goal a season striker. Now, if you have a striker like, let's say, Isak in the team and he's starting games, some games he'll be on the bench and he'll start Jesus. Some games he'll be on the bench and he'll start Havertz. You can rotate like that. If I look at the bench and I see, recently we looked at the bench and it was Nketiah and Nelson. And when Nketiah came on, I saw the reaction from a lot of Arsenal fans. It was like, Nketiah, what is he going to do? Now, when he gets to that point, it's not good for him. But listen, if you have someone like Isak playing, and then you look at the bench, you bring in Trossard and Jesus, and I don't know, Vlahovic is maybe coming off the bench for Jesus in the last 30 minutes to try and score a goal and it's 1-1. Then you'd be like, listen, this is good. Vlahovic, you have Jesus who can also come on and play on the wing. You can have Havertz who can come on and impact in the games that he can. Then you have 3-4 different options. good options, all four of them. Like Man City have Haaland, Alvarez, Grealish, Doku, Foden, Bernardo Silva, all very good options. I don't think there's a player there we look at and you're like, nah, I don't think there's a player who comes on there and Man City fans are like, Grealish, why? I don't think they ever get that reaction. Now, the reason we're looking for a striker is because Nketiah looks like he's also going to leave. We've been struggling for goals. Arsenal will make their striker Nketiah available for transfer this summer, but will ask for 40 million. Wow. Now, we know I think Nketiah will definitely leave, as I just said. When he came on against Bayern Munich, the reaction from like more than half the fan base was like, Nketiah is going to. And I was like, I kind of felt bad for him. Now, I would definitely upgrade on him as well. I don't feel like he's going to ever become a starting striker at Arsenal, unfortunately. But I was actually one of those people who, back in 2021, if you go back to the transfer videos in 2021, who Arsenal should sell and all that, I did actually put Nketiah, Maitland-Niles, and Nelson on that list. I wanted them to be sold in 2021. But good for Nketiah. Obviously, he changed his situation at Arsenal. He's got a couple of crucial goals, got a new contract a couple of seasons ago. Nelson also had an impact last season. He got a new contract. But I think we've reached a stage where Arsenal fans are even kind of saying, listen, we also kind of need to move forward from Smith Rowe. It's got into that situation where Arsenal fans want upgrades and they want world-class players to be signed and they want more experienced players to be signed. And unfortunately, players like Nketiah will be the ones to be sold. Now, 40 million, we really get that 40 million? I'm not really sure. But if we get around 30 or 35 million, all of a sudden that adds to our budget. And from that, you can get another goalkeeper, a backup goalkeeper, or maybe a left back or something like that. So if you have around 235 million to spend, that would be great. And remember, it's not all Nketiah who could be sold. As I say, there's Nelson, there's Tierney, there's Lokonga, there's Smith Rowe, there's Partey. Zinchenko and Jesus, I don't know. I feel like Jesus and Zinchenko are still going to be here next season. And there's several other players who could end up leaving the club. I know some we're not going to get any money for, the likes of El Neni and the likes of Cedric, but let's see what happens. But wow, a lot. I think is going to be very, very busy for us. To be another lively one, just like the last one where we were signing players in June and getting deals done within the first month of the transfer window. A similar thing happening, but this time there's Euros, so you could see a busy June and July mostly. Maybe even into August, we'll still be signing players. It's going to be interesting though. Let me know what you make about all that we've covered today. Hit the like button. Striker would you want? Which midfielder would you want? And between a defender and a goalkeeper, would you want to keep Ramsey? Let me know all that. But as of now, thank you for watching, and I'll catch up with you guys on the next.